In Helena, lawmakers are considering several property tax relief bills, and Montana Free Press reporter Eric Dietrich is following it all very closely, posting new stories this week. And he joins me today via Zoom to talk about the proposals and what it all means for Montanans. So, welcome, Eric.
I'm glad to be here.
First, go ahead and describe what's happening in Montana and why.
Yeah, so the short version of property taxes for homeowners and some renters are going up. It's been a long-term trend that kind of exploded in the last few years, especially coming out of the 2023 reappraisal cycle. A lot of reasons for that. Tight housing market is pulling up tight housing market is pulling up property values, and that pulls tax burden from other types of properties. There's also been a long-term trend in the state towards having fewer big industrial taxpayers like mines and lumber mills. Historically, those folks covered a lot of the property tax bill for local schools and police departments and that sort of thing. The challenge with property taxes is that those local services need to be paid somehow. And so if you're a lawmaker looking at trying to figure out how to address rising taxes on homes, you got to either, presuming you don't want to cut those services, you have to be looking somewhere and somebody has to pay more someplace in the system.
What are some numbers you can throw out on the situation right now?
Yeah, so it's a little bit tricky to throw out numbers just because different communities in the state look so different that there's different compositions of tax base, different things going on at the real estate markets. But the best number I've been able to find is at the last reappraisal cycle, 2022 to 2023, we saw a median increase of about 21% for residential tax bills, so significant. And of course most of your viewers felt this in their pocketbooks, right? So it's like, and of course, and the change did vary widely, but 21% is about typical, I think.
Okay. Several proposals right now before lawmakers in Helena. Talk about some of the top proposals out there, starting with the homestead bill.
Yeah, so that is House Bill 231. It's explicitly backed by Governor Greg Gianforte, a Republican. And essentially, what it would do is it would try to lower taxes on primary rentals by raising them on second homes and Airbnb style vacation rentals. Would do that by kind of reworking some of the levers buried deep in the state's tax code. But I would also reduce taxes on some smaller commercial properties. The folks that are sponsoring it are worried that trying to shift burden off of homes would end up kind of squeezing the balloon and shifting burden onto, say, Main Street businesses. They're talking about coffee shops and flower shops and that sort of thing. Um, that bill went up for its initial committee hearing Wednesday morning this week. The sponsor, Conrad Republican Lou Jones, basically his argument is that he thinks it's a reasonable way to kind of try to rebalance things a little bit without doing too much of that balloon squeezing, pushing burden onto other people, robbing Peter to pay Paul, as the saying goes. That bill at that hearing was opposed by kind of two groups of people. One of them are large business representatives, like the oil refineries and Billings, for example. The petroleum industry was in there saying they're worried that that bill would raise taxes on them. Also, some progressive tax advocates who would like to see the tax system reworked to shift more burden onto wealthy people, whether or not they own second homes. They
Hmm.
were in there. Also, they've got other proposals they'd like better.
What's next for this bill?
So that bill, it had its initial, so like I said, it had its initial kind of review by a committee at the House Taxation Committee this morning. And at some point, that committee will put it up on a vote. They might tweak it. They might pass it on to the House floor. And at that point, it's kind of off through like the extra next 4 or 5 steps in the legislative gauntlet. So.
Okay. So run through some of the other bills and proposals in-house at the Capitol from the Republicans.
Yeah, so I think to kind of preface this, we're at the kind of the spaghetti throwing stage of the legislature where there are a lot of ideas in circulation. People are kind of throwing things to the wall, trying to see, impolitely what sticks in terms of what enough lawmakers are interested in to kind of keep stuff moving through the legislative process. A lot of these ideas we're hearing this week in the tax committees will not get that support and will end up kind of floundering. Some of the ideas I've been watching, one is a bill from Gila Republican Senator Carl Glenn, and that would take money from the state's lodging tax, the 4% and 4%, 8% total you pay if you book a hotel in Montana. And that would take that money, a lot of which currently goes to tourism promotion, and instead divert it towards property tax relief. He
Mm.
says that could, take a few $100 a year off people's tax bills. Of course, the folks that use that money are tourism-based businesses and tourism advocates. They don't like that idea at all and showed up in committee staunchly opposed to that this week. And there are a bunch of other things in circulation too. I think that there are measures that would make it harder for local governments to pass mill levies, like if they want to raise their taxes for a parks program, or in some cases, I think school levies. Kind of raising the threshold, make it harder to pass those.
Mhm.
Those ideas are in circulation as well.
Okay. So what do Democrats want? What are they
Yeah.
proposing?
Yeah. So the Democrats, they have a couple ideas. One is Democrats have a couple ideas. One of them, probably the most interesting one and easiest one to explain, is an income tax credit bill, and it would basically let you claim a credit for a portion of your property tax bill when you file your state income taxes every year. They basically say that as a way to make sure that people who have seen their property tax bills rise, perhaps with their incomes haven't risen as much, that could potentially keep those people from being taxed out of their homes because it would tie the income to property tax, net property tax bill together. And the
Mhm.
mechanics are a little wonky, but it would kind of yeah, they say that it would be probably the easiest and simplest way, right? It would potentially avoid the balloon squeezing that happens if you try to like lower taxes on residential and somebody else has to pick up the bill. And instead, you just use essentially income tax dollars to offset tax bills.
Got
Um,
it.
the Republicans
Okay.
I heard from in committee are not super thrilled on that idea, though. They worry about kind of tying the income tax to the property tax too tightly and that causing problems down the road. So.
Mhm. A lot of back and forth, of course. And there's an outside initiative as well.
Yeah, there's some folks that for years have wanted Montana to adopt what they call a tax cap initiative, and that would be a constitutional amendment that basically prevents how fast taxes on any individual property can rise unless it's sold or redeveloped. They've been trying to get that on the ballot for a few years, have taken several runs without success. They're going to try again for 2026. Yeah, that measure would be kind of a hard cap on increases. The folks are there's it draws a lot of opposition, but everybody from the teachers union to the Chamber of Commerce is opposed to that. Those folks worry that it would just kind of flip the table on the tax system and kind of create a mess that somebody has to figure out how to clean up. So.
Okay. Well, bottom line, your overall sense at what's happening in these proposals before lawmakers, and if you have any feeling or sense which ones will push through.
Oh my gosh. I've learned that I should not try to predict what the Montana legislature is going to try to do. I'm often surprised. Like I said, we're pretty early in the process. These bills are kind of all coming up for kind of their additional, air of the idea hearing, and then all of them need to kind of pass their initial committee votes. And after those votes, we'll kind of that's the first culling of these bills, really. So in a couple of weeks, we should start to know which of these bills are going to be moving out of committees and on to debates on the House or Senate floor. And at that point, I think we'll have a better idea of kind of what the serious ideas are. Oh, not the serious ideas, what the ideas that have legs, as people say in the Capitol, are,
Okay.
which ones are might likely end up on the governor's desk.
Well, I know you'll continue to follow this.
Yeah.
What stories can we look forward to next?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm still working on. Well, oh my gosh. Well, we'll be watching those votes closely and kind of seeing what happens. And then I expect that there'll be interesting ideas that I haven't talked about here that come up too. But I think there's more in the works. The session is still young. So,
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
no, I mean I think that appreciate people taking the time to listen. It's kind of hard to talk about this stuff on TV. So we appreciate people humoring me and the people who know how this stuff works. Appreciate you giving me some grace for the stuff I've been perhaps imprecise about.
Well, it impacts everyone, whether you're renting or a homeowner, property owners, all of that. So it definitely is something that impacts all Montanans. So we're thankful for your reporting and look forward to the next reports that you have out this week and next week as you follow this process along. So thank you so much, Eric.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for making time to listen to me.